What's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Redmagic 9S Pro. And if you're familiar with these Redmagic devices, throughout the year, they do a mid-gen refresh on their flagship, which this year just happened to be the Redmagic 9. So now we've got the 9S Pro here, and it's not without some major upgrades. We've actually got a faster CPU, faster GPU, better cooling system. And overall, when it comes to Android handsets, this thing is definitely packing some power. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the device, we're going to go over the specs, run some benchmarks, test some games, and then I want to show you what they call their console mode. That's my favorite feature of these Redmagic devices. Basically, this gives us kind of a game console mode. You can call it a desktop mode, so we can game on a big screen. Redmagic released two different color variants of the 9S Pro. What we have here is the Snowfall version. As you can see around the back here, we do have some RGB, and if you're familiar with these Redmagic devices, we've got a built-in cooling fan. It's their new enhanced ICE 13.5 cooling system with a 22,000 RPM fan. Inside of the box with the 9S Pro, we do get a protective back cover. Comes with our USB Type-C cable and a 65-watt quick charger. Now keep in mind, this will actually support an 80-watt charger, and you can go from 0 to 100% in 35 minutes. Taking a look around the unit, down here we've got our SIM card slot, our USB Type-C input, and one of the speakers here for the dual speaker system. And I gotta say, the audio this thing puts out is pretty amazing. It's using dual 1115K speakers and 5 magnetic sound units. It supports Snapdragon sound and DTS:X. Over here on this side, you might notice a little bit of a venting system. This is actually the intake vent for the built-in cooling system. Moving over to the other side, we've got our exhaust vent, volume rocker, power button, our Redmagic space switch, which will kind of put us into a gaming mode on the phone itself. Plus, we've got our 520 Hz touch triggers over here, and these are now RGB backlit on the 9S Pro. And of course, up top, we still have a 3.5mm audio jack for anybody that wants to use headphones with this device. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are working with a faster CPU speed and a faster GPU speed here, but we're still using that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. This is the leading version, so on that X4 core, it goes up to 3.4 GHz instead of 3.3, and on that Adreno 750i GPU, instead of 750, we're up to 1 GHz on this unit. To keep it all cool, we've got that enhanced ICE 13.5 cooling system, 16 GB of LPDDR5X RAM, 512 GB of superfast UFS 4.0 storage, 120 Hz 6.8-inch BOE Q9 Plus AMOLED display up to 1600 nits of brightness, and a resolution of 2480 by 1116. It also features Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.3, a 65 mAh battery that supports 80-watt quick charging, and again, we can go from 0 to 100% in 35 minutes using an 80-watt charger. And this is running Redmagic 9.5. It's based on Android 14. Over here on the right-hand side, we've got this little switch, and once we enable it, it's going to bring us into the Redmagic interface. I'm not exactly sure if they're still calling this Redmagic time or not, but either way, we've got a game launcher and a bunch of different gaming-centric features, like new plugins and things like that we can enable on this device. And the new plugin system is actually pretty neat. I think they plan on adding some more, but there's still a lot to choose from right now, and what I'm going to do is plug this into my game capture. This way, we can get a better look at everything, and heading back to Superbase, plugin library, you can see that there's a lot of plugins to choose from here. One new one that I saw was their card draw assist. Over here on the left-hand side, it's going to give you a little bit of information about it, what it does exactly. When you need to draw cards in a game but cannot decide, the assistant generates several random numbers corresponding to the cards you may flip. Free display will actually allow us to change the aspect ratio of a game, and I've actually seen this in action over on their website, taking a portrait style game, making it landscape and vice versa. Crosshair, so we can have that on screen at any given time. Stopwatch, AI triggers. I mean, there's a lot to mess around with here, and again, it gives you all that information you need to know over on the left-hand side. Heading back to the home screen, depending on what game you have chosen, we can actually adjust the settings. So let's say for Asphalt, we're going to go right over here, screen touch adjustment, and we can also adjust performance. So once we start this game up, we can start it in Eco, Balance, Rise mode, GPU settings, Standard, Power Saver, Quality, Custom, and from here we can change the filtering on the fly, MIP-MAP, LOD, Auto VRS. So yeah, there's a lot of tweaking and tuning that you can do with this device. When it comes to overall gaming performance on the Redmagic 9S Pro, it is top-notch for an Android device. We've got that upgraded Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 with a nice cooling system. And while playing a game at any given time, we can swipe over from the right or the left-hand side and open up our Redmagic settings. From here, we can dial in the performance we want to get out of this. So we've got a low-end mode here, which is great for something like Minecraft. Balance mode, which works for most Android games. Performance mode is something that I use with this game, Genshin Impact, but there's also another mode that's kind of hidden over here on the side, known as Diablo mode. And basically what this is going to do is take the clocks on the CPU and the GPU all the way up, so we're at 3.4 on that big core, 1000 megahertz or 1 gigahertz on the GPU, and this is definitely going to give us the maximum performance, but the device is going to burn a lot more battery, so performance mode is usually the way to go. When it comes to those plugins, we can actually access them directly from this side over here. And I've enabled a few, like our on-screen FPS counter. Well, it's more of a performance monitor, but I use it just for that FPS. We can move it anywhere on the screen. We've got a screen recorder, that crosshair, do not disturb mode. Everything's here that we want to access. And when playing a game like Genshin Impact on Android, as a lot of us already know, there's no controller support, at least official controller support. But with the 9S Pro, we can access their software known as Gravity X. So for instance, I've got the new ROG Tessin controller, USB Type-C. We're just going to go ahead and slide this in. It's going to come up on screen, knows we've got a controller connected. This will also work with the mouse and keyboard. Now we can actually use this controller to play our favorite games that don't natively support controllers. We can use the on-screen key mapper, really easy to set up, kind of gives you a walkthrough once you plug it in. And right now, I'm at 60 FPS, very high settings with Genshin Impact, and I know it's a bit hard to see here, but we are at 60 FPS with this Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. In fact, I haven't run into any Android game that I couldn't run at full speed maxed out. I've tested out Diablo, PUBG, Asphalt, all of those with the graphics settings that we can access on Android can be totally maxed out. And first and foremost, this is an Android device, so most people will be playing on the built-in screen, either the touch screen or using a controller like this right now. But I do want to show you how console mode works, because it is my favorite feature of these Redmagic devices. But before we move over there, I did want to show you a couple benchmarks that I ran on this device versus the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Both of these phones use the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and like I mentioned, the Redmagic 9S Pro is using the leading version, which is basically the Galxy Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which has that higher clock in the GPU and CPU. With Geekbench 6, the 9S Pro is coming ahead just a little bit here, and it really comes down to that cooling system we have with this phone. And it really shows with a benchmark like Antutu that has to run for a while and go through a bunch of different tests. I mean, we're seeing a pretty phenomenal score here for an Android device on that Redmagic 9S Pro for sure. But now I want to show off my favorite feature for these Redmagic devices, and that's console mode. So this does support video over USB Type-C, and I've actually got a 27-inch monitor here that does support USB Type-C video in. But keep in mind, you could always use an adapter or a dock, and right now we're just mirroring that screen. We have zero latency between the phone screen and the monitor, but as soon as I flip this Redmagic switch, it's going to go into console mode on the larger screen. A virtual touchpad does come up on the phone screen, but we can disable this and still use the phone like it is while it's plugged in. So we've basically got two displays here. We can still make calls. We could actually play another game on the small screen and the big screen at the same time. And once we have console mode enabled, it looks a little something like this. Instead of mirroring the screen, we've actually got a full screen over here on the external monitor. I'm using a mouse, and I've also got an Xbox controller connected over Bluetooth. We still have access to all of the performance settings from within the games that we do on that Redmagic phone on the built-in screen. Down here, mouse sensitivity can be changed if you've got it plugged in. We can lock the phone screen. Plus, we've got that on-screen touchpad just in case you don't have a controller. And by the way, they do offer an application for Windows that'll allow you to plug this into your PC and do kind of the same thing if you don't have an HDMI to USB Type-C adapter. Fan can be turned off up here. And once we get into a game, down here in the lower left-hand corner, we can go to our eco mode, balanced, rise. With something like Minecraft, you can stay in the eco mode, but since we're plugged into power, we don't need to worry about saving any battery. I usually just leave this in rise mode. On-screen overlay, and if we just want that FPS right here, this is actually at 1440p, 120 Hz right now. Keyboard and mouse settings. Again, lock that screen and bring it all back down. Overall, in console mode, this has actually been a pretty good experience, and you can still use the built-in phone screen. You don't need to just use it as a touchpad. You can go ahead and make calls on it. You can run a second app on that screen if you want to. But obviously, the reason you would do something like this is for big screen gaming, and I do need to add a few more apps. So it might not pick up all of your games. We'll go with this, Nether SX2, and that's pretty much it. But now we've got all of the games we want to play here, and I'm going to go with Call of Duty Mobile. So in order for me to go up to 120 FPS, I did have to go to medium settings. It just kind of defaults back there when we change the frame rate. At 90, we can go to high, but I wanted to run this at 120 just to show you that it will run constantly there. And we've got that FPS up on screen. Xbox controller works natively with this game. We didn't have to use any kind of screen mappers. And it does look good on a bigger screen. I've seen a few Android devices that support video over USB Type-C, but then when you plug it into a larger screen and start playing your games, you notice that the game is a lower resolution. This is definitely super clean, and it's been the case across the board with everything that I've tested. With these easier to run games, it doesn't take much, but I still wanted to show at least one off before we moved over to a little bit of emulation. So here we have PSP using PPSSPP, Tekken 6. We're maxed out at 10x resolution. It's definitely overkill. I mean, even though we can go up to 1440p, going to 10x is pretty crazy here. But this Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 does handle it. And with something like Chains of Olympus, I did have to drop it down to 8x, but I'm not worried about it. It's well over 4K. And again, it's still overkill for the display and video output. Another one I wanted to show off here was some Gamecube using the Dolphin emulator. So this really goes for most of the games that I've tested here, even Wii games. We've got Auto Modellista. I'm using the OpenGL backend because that's really where it's at with these Snapdragon chips. If I head back into the settings, I wanted to show you here, we're actually over 1440p with it. Enhancements, internal resolution, 2560 by 2112. So we're at 4x native resolution. And these games are running great. I mean, we're at 60 with this game here. I do consider this a harder to emulate game, especially on this track. Coming around the corner on lower end devices, you will see it dip on down. But this is hanging pretty tight here, over 1440p on this device, using an external display. So yeah, we've got a nice little bump in performance, better cooling system, but is it worth upgrading from the 9 right now? Personally, I would just wait until the Redmagic 10 or whatever they're going to call it comes out with the newer Snapdragon chipset. But if you've been in the market for the Redmagic 9, I would definitely opt for the 9S over that right now. But that's going to wrap it up for our first look video at the Redmagic 9S Pro. If you want to learn a little more about this device, I'll leave some links in the description. And if there's anything else you want to see running on it, let me know in the comments. But that's it for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.